Discover Help presents Stress-Free Living with Ray Samich and Mr. Stress-Free Ratanjit S. Sandhi. This audio program is an unscripted and unrehearsed conversation between Ray and Ratanjit. It is shared with you in hope of adding value to your life. We encourage you to listen to this program in its entirety to receive the full impact of its message. Sit back, relax, open your heart, mind, and soul to this edition of Stress-Free Living.
This is Stress-Free Living. Thank you so much for being with us. I'm Ray Samis. I'd like to introduce you all to my co-host, Ratanjit Sandhi, my longtime radio colleague and friend. How are you, Ratanjit?
Wonderful, Ray. How are you?
I am excellent, thank you. And we are already engaged with our Zoom audience here this morning, right up into showtime. If you would like to be a part of this very special community of friends and guests that gather from all around the world on a regular basis, please do consider joining us live each Saturday morning, almost every Saturday morning. And for more information on that, you can visit our YouTube Stress-Free Living Radio page. Stress-Free Living Radio. Put that in the search on YouTube and you'll find well over 100 programs and also the link so that you can be part of this amazing community of friends that we gather together every week. Ratanjit, last week we went back to the very basics of this 30-year program, and you always refer to adding the highest value. That is probably the most popular, prominent phrase of the program, how we can add the highest value. And so we really took that back to some of the basics last week and started talking about that. We wanted to continue today for a number of reasons. First of all, we didn't finish the topic. There's so much more that we can talk about it. But secondly, we had a little technical issue at the end of the program, unfortunately, with an internet drop, and we didn't properly close the show the way we should have. But what that also allowed us to do is to get some feedback from some people, to think about it ourselves. And one of the points that came up a couple of times was that let's more clearly define what you mean by those words. You know, it's so common to you. It's so second nature to you and maybe many of our regular listeners, but for somebody who isn't familiar with that phrase, how would you define that? How would you really explain that more deeply?
You know, it's tied to our purpose of life. You know, when you think of it, a child is born, and pretty soon life passes by, and you go to school, you learn, you get a degree, and you get a job, you get married, and then you have children, and you have buy a house and those things, and eventually you get old and you pass away. So many of us have midlife crisis. So you wonder, what is the purpose of this? Why I am collecting all these things? So the real purpose of life is vested in the basic question to find out who we are. And once we realize that we are not the human body, we are a human body, all the organs and everything is still present when a person dies. And basically, there is life in us. There is a power present in us which makes us alive. So we are we the human body? Are we the power which resides in this human body? So once we understand the reality of who I am more of a power which never dies, which never ages, which never gets contaminated. And in that understanding of that power, you develop a sense of utter gratefulness for that power. You have a reverence for that power which is present in you and everyone else who you come across, whether you like their habits or whether you like their size, color, or race, or whatever, but they are alive because of the same exact power. And once you have a reverence and enormous respect and gratefulness for that power, you incentivize yourself that you need to serve that power in you as well as whoever comes across. And when you are serving that power, I use the phrase because each individual is designed by the universal wisdom as a unique person. In the greatest wisdom of the universe, it has never duplicated anything. You see the tree, each leaf of that tree is different size and different. And each human being out of 8 billion people, each person has a different fingerprint, different eyes, different structure. And we are all different. We are not equal, but we are equally unique. And that is why when you serve this divine power, we have this uniqueness through which we add value. So the value you add, you are going to look at it differently than value I add. So the main purpose of our life is to add value. And if you look at it from the worldly sense, whenever you have the capacity, wisdom, knowledge, skills to add value, your value goes up. All your success, whether it is the success of having a good relationship or success in business or a job or in a profession, is all depends on how you add value, whether you add high value or lower value. So the whole life runs from this scenario of adding value. But if you are vested in the right spirit of adding the highest value, and that spirit is guided by your great reverence and great respect for the divine power which is present in each and every individual, you do not cut corner. You add the highest value in every encounter, every thought, and every act, right?
We're going to go into all of that much more deeply, and I appreciate everything you've just opened with. But when you first started a few minutes ago, you said, in the end, when we really assess what our purpose is, why we're here, and the thought process that we can all relate to is the person in their older years, perhaps bedridden at that point, and in their dying hours or dying days, they're reflecting on their life. We've all known what that looks like. I've often thought about it. I've often shared this with others. I've often been in that situation where I've been at this bedside of somebody in those hours. And there's no doubt at those hours, we're not talking about all the places we visited. We're not talking about all of the things we've accumulated. But we are talking about the lives that we've touched. the people that have either become very special to us, or we know that we have touched them in a way over the course of their life that has made a difference. That's what I believe I will be thinking about in my final minutes. How does that fit into what you've just talked about? I mean, the love that we have given and been given, the the efforts that we've made to touch people in a meaningful way that has, yes, added value to them, but also shown our emotional expression. It's shown, it's connected us with them. Is there a direct correlation? Am I just restating what you said in different ways? Or is it just a portion of the bigger picture? What do you think?
We all have friends. Fundamentally, if you look at this friendship under a microscope, you simply cannot have friends. You can only be a friend. And friendship you develop is all based on the value you add to that person. Whether you listen to them or you help them or in any form, what I call as adding value is in a different fashion, different ways, different shape or form. But ultimately, a stranger, when you help that stranger under any circumstances, that stranger becomes your friend. So you can only have friends. You can only be a friend. You cannot have friends. So fundamentally, the whole universe around us, whether it is your job or it is your happiness, it is your relationship, it is protecting the environment, or everything is all centered around adding the highest value, adding
Where
the
does
value.
love fit into that, Ratanjit? Where love, we all know that word is so misused and overused and abused, but ultimately, the love that we feel for others, we know there's so much joy and fulfillment in love. Is that a part of adding the highest value? Is that a big part of it? Is it just a portion of it?
The example we gave last time, when a young girl, 17, 18, 20, spends all our time in either the telephone, texting somebody, or looking in the mirror, how beautiful she is. And when she gets married and when she has a child, she becomes the highest value adding individual for that child. And that is all incentivized by the love. So when you see this divine power enlivening us and everyone else, you see the common one power which is present in everything. And when you see amazing things this power does, you fall in love with that power. And you have that incentive which a mother has to add the highest value. So in the middle of the night, the smallest voice of that baby wakes her up. And she never complains whether she has 1 hour sleep or the whole night sleep, because the value she adds, the service she provides to that baby, the love she provides to that baby itself is so gratifying, because there is a hunger in all of us for that, expressing that love. We did a show on loneliness. And again, that loneliness is never because of the absence of loved one around you. Loneliness is always because of the true love present within you. So once that love is centered around you, you have the natural incentive to serve. And when you serve somebody, you serve that somebody based on the knowledge and skill and talent you possess. So to enhance the capability of serving, which I call is adding highest value, you have to continuously enhance your capabilities by learning, by understanding and developing new skills so that you are able to help others, right?
This makes sense, but I need to zero in on a couple of portions there. I love the example of the mother with the baby. So let's go a little deeper on that. And certainly we've all been in situations when you say the mother doesn't complain, it's our human nature that the mother probably will say, I didn't sleep all night because of the baby, but she still does it lovingly and totally, and she knows, and she doesn't even mind doing it, but she just will tell somebody she did it, which is okay, because it's difficult. Some of those challenges, whatever they might be, you just want to tell a friend that you've been through there, but they're more than willing to do it. And my question is it the love that makes me want to do that? Is it because I love that child so much that I'm incentivized to be with them even at my own loss of sleep and exhaustion? Or does the love come because I've done it? Because I've made that sacrifice, that I have fallen in love with that baby even more deeply. And I don't know if I'm expressing the clarity that I'm trying to say. Is the love first, or does the
You,
love become a byproduct of adding the highest value?
you know, there's adding value and adding the highest value. There are two things. So adding value can be incentivized by our needs. I have to work. I have to give my services so that I get paid. It can also be incentivized by the fear. If I don't work, I lose a job. It can also be incentivized by my ego, my greed. But to add the highest value can only be incentivized by the true love within me. I want to elevate, and it's never enough. The sign of when you are on the journey of adding the highest value, one of the symptoms is that it's never enough. After you added the value, you feel that I should have done more. And you have the incentive because you want to add the highest value, you automatically develop incentive to learn more, to be a better student, to elevate your capabilities to add the highest value. The highest value, this word highest, is a journey. It can never be achieved. It's like a perfection. You only travel toward it. You have an incentive to continuously improve your last best. So ultimately, in the business world, we compete against other competition. So once you understand the concept of adding the highest value, you begin to understand your only and true competitor is your last best performance. So you continuously improve your product, your services, and you are not competing against other person, other party, other company. You are competing against your last best. So the concept of adding value touches every part of our life, whether it is the relationship with your children, whether it is a relationship with your loved one, or friends, or society, or your job. So once you focus on adding the highest value, you automatically win in every field. And you automatically have friends. You automatically have full satisfaction, internal gratifications, fulfillment in this life, right?
You have put so much information into the box that we want to, open up and talk about over the course of today's show and future shows. So many different items that you just put into that conversation, and I thank you for that. In the expansion of all of these things that you're talking about, there also are more questions. And forgive me for going back to the love part of it, but I want to just understand a little more what you are saying with that. At one point, you said something like, love is the incentive for adding the highest value, or something to that, close to that. Who is that love for? When we're adding the highest value at work, or I mean, it's easy to see when I'm adding the highest value with my children or with my spouse or with my friends, it's easy to understand that love. I get that completely. And we're willing, the expression, we're willing to take a bullet for our kids, okay, or step in front of a train for our kids. We get that idea of love. But how does love be at the core of adding the highest value when we're working with our job, when we're working with our community, when we're, doing things that seemingly don't have love in them? Is there love in them that I'm overlooking? Is there an aspect of that in our life? Is it because of the fact that I have it within me?
I answer that, you have to take a break because it's already
You're
past
going to
your
keep us
time to
waiting?
take.
All right. All right. I think you just want an extra minute to think about the answer. This is Stress-Free Living. We're so glad you're with us here today as we are talking about how to add the highest value. And before we leave today, before we finish the show, we're going to actually tell you how to do that. This is Stress-Free Living. We'll be back in a moment. All right.
Sana, you
All right,
had.
everybody, your turn. 90 seconds you got. Anybody have a real quick thought or a
Yeah,
question
Sana,
to ask?
Sana wanted to say something. Sana, go ahead.
Sure. I'll come back in the last session. It's not related to the topic. That's right. I'll come back later. Thank you.
Thank you, Sana. Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
have Pierre with us. Hi, Pierre.
Hello, hello, hello. It's good to be with you.
We have been missing you.
I know I have. It's been a rough few months, but
Is everything all right?
yeah. My mom passed, and then I had a lot of stuff.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, to take care of, and then we did an acquisition down in Texas, and I've been traveling a lot, so it's been a little bit hectic for me. So today I made an appointment with myself so I can be here.
Oh,
Good to have you. So glad you're with us. Anyone have a quick thought or question for the show? And it's okay if you don't.
I basically wanted to ask Ratanjit Singh, We are talking about adding value to the power, which we are talking about soul or the ultimate power that never dies. But how do we know making all these things is adding value to it, number one? Secondly, whatever we are adding or serving this power is through the body, but we are separating body versus soul, right? If we are making anybody happy, it's the body happy, right? How do we know we are touching the soul? So these are two different things. But whatever we are doing, it has to be through the body. You help me out understanding it.
Yes.
I understand the concept, but I'm not clear. How did we decide that it works on the soul, not on the body alone?
Yes.
We are back on Stress Free Living. Ratanjit and yours truly, Ray Samich, with you today. And during our breaks, we interact with our fabulous guests that are our Zoom friends that join us for the show. And again, we love to have you be part of that community. Ratanjit, so many different ideas that they just shared with us. But I want to go back to the question that I had asked just before the break, and I hope you remember it because I'm not sure I do anymore after those conversations we've just had. Do you remember what I asked you?
You're asking me to remember.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Then while I'm regaining my question, let's move on to one that one of our great guests just asked us. And I hope that we get the other question answered before we leave today.
Okay.
But what is the
Who are
ultimate purpose
we
of
serving? So basically, we understand our incentive comes from seeing the universal power present. Our love is with the universal power. So your question was when we are in the office, when we are
Yes.
our family or our loved one, I can understand adding the highest value. How do I find love in the workplace? Have an incentive of love adding the highest value. If love is the incentive to focus me to add the highest value, my love is always for the universal power present within me, around me, and within everyone else. So everyone else, when they are alive, when they are around me, I am basically the only way I can add value to the universal power is serving the universal power present within each one of us. Now, we are, or one of our guests asked, ultimately, I'm adding value to the human body because I'm feeding them, I'm serving them, I'm comforting them, I'm helping them. Basically, and my incentive is for the universal power present in them. So it's like going to a temple. So we keep on decorating the temple. We keep on cleaning the temple. We keep on doing those things because we think our God resides there. So similarly, we keep on helping this temple, the human body temple, to nurture and help them. And ultimately, we reach the conscience of that person and we reach the universal power present in that person. Ray, are you there? I can
Yeah.
basically see no movement in your picture.
Oh, I'm here. No, I'm writing down. I'm writing down notes so my feeble brain doesn't forget questions anymore. Okay, no, I'm with you. Okay, so I want to tie those two things together. You moved on to the question from one of our wonderful guests here in terms of serving the body and serving the soul together. And I appreciate that you've moved those two together, because I thought they were distinct, but maybe they're not distinctly different from what we were talking about before. So we'll come back to that second part, but I want to start with the first part, and that was the love factor. Okay. I've never, I never really thought about love being part of adding the highest value. And that's kind of crazy to admit this, because for 30 years you've been telling me to add the highest value, and I've been learning more and more about that concept, but I didn't really equate love in that scenario. Love seems to be, I mean, obviously it's an incredibly powerful, fulfilling emotion. There's no question. I'm not minimizing love, but I didn't understand how love outside of my relationships helps me to add the highest value. To me, it's more, brain power. It's more skills. It's more action oriented in terms of how to do things, what to do, how to, and yes, ultimately touching people, but not necessarily with love.
No,
Have,
because you have never experienced the true love. The love which you are calling love, really mine. They're my children. That's why you love them. They're ego. The love, until it is completely not tied to somebody, love is a fragrance. Once you give out the fragrance, a rose bush, when you have a bush, rose bush has a rose, it gives fragrance to the criminal as much as to a saint. It does not distinguish. The moment you distinguish love, give love only to the people who are yours, basically you are vested in your ego. They are mine. And egoless love only comes from realizing that you can only love the universal power unconditionally present within you. You love yourself thus as much as you love anybody else. And the true love is always vested in recognizing who you are. Once you understand you are the power which is enlivening you, and that power resides in this human body, which is also a gift from the universe. And same thing around you and within you. So your love flows out of you for a stranger, for an enemy, for a friend, for your loved one. It's completely unconditional. If until love is unconditional, it is not love, right?
this is so bizarre, Ratanjit, because I didn't think of love being in there at all. And now after listening to you, it's almost like unconditional love is the foundation of adding the highest value. I mean,
Absolutely.
if you had absolutely, so you just affirmed it. I mean, this is crazy that I can go from 0 to 100 in 10 seconds. And it makes sense, because if we have the unconditional love, we know the power of love, even if we've done it for the wrong reasons, even if there is, and it hurts a little bit to think that it's been ego oriented, but I guess it has been, because they are my kids and my spouse and my parents and my brothers and everything else. But even if it has been ego oriented, we know the power of love. We know how that would give us the ultimate motivation on behalf of love. If we could take that now to an unconditional level, saying that we're not limiting it just to that inner circle, just to our closest family and friends, but we unconditionally want to acknowledge that ability to give that to everybody unconditionally, that's that power, that motivation, that empowerment suddenly becomes endless for the world. And with that motivation, now we can see how we are driven to add the highest value in every circumstance and encounter and opportunity. That's opened a door in my mind that was closed for my entire life until I realized that that's the ultimate first step of adding the highest value. Is that right? Am I right on that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow.
And
Okay.
unconditional love only happens when you find something universal, when you find something which cannot be destroyed, which are there before you were born. It will be there after you're gone. And it has given you everything which happens to you, around you, within you, with your loved one, is all because of the universal power which is present around us. And once you fall in love with that power, and it begins with gratefulness, and gratefulness ultimately converts into love. And once that love happens to you, you become a value-adding entity. No matter what you do, you add the highest value, right?
I think with that, we're going to take a break here and kind of gather our thoughts together, listen to some comments from our Zoom guests, and then we're going to move on eventually before we leave. Although we actually kind of started the how-to part right there. How-to starts with that understanding of unconditional love as a critical point in moving on our mindset to always go into everything trying to add the highest value. We have much more to share with you. Thanks so much for being with us. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, your turn. 90 seconds, folks. Who's got a thought, an idea, question? Am I the only one blown away by that last thing? Anybody else? Maybe you guys all knew that and I didn't.
Oh, I tell you, it's a life-changing paradigm when you actually get to experience that. And it's amazing how it manifests itself when you're on that path. Once you're on that path and you start to scrape the surface of how that works, you'll see everything around you help you to continue to elevate that level of service and love. I don't know if I can explain this to you, but once you experience it, when you look at people, when you deal with people, when you work with everyone around you, there is only one way that you see everyone, which is they're my brothers and sisters, and I am there to serve them, regardless if they're family or they're not. So the differentiation between loving a family member and loving a neighbor and loving someone that you just met becomes kind of, there is no, that differentiation goes away, and it allows you to become a much higher power of servitude towards everyone around you. And it's an amazing thing, and you will see people around you recognize it, and that will help you to elevate your level of service and level of contribution. I hope I phrased that correctly.
No, beautiful, very beautiful. I think we only have a few more seconds. Anyone have a quick thought or quick question before we go back? Nope, music is on. We'll talk with you all in a few. We are back on Stress Free Living. Ray Samich and Ratanjit Sandhi with you today. talking again about adding the highest value, something at the very core of our philosophy, of our plan, of our vision of stress-free life. And at the core of adding the highest value, we've determined, Ratanjit has shared with us, it's unconditional love. And unconditional, let's just take an extra second on that aspect of it, because love, for all of its power and abilities and motivating capabilities, is very often, as you pointed out, based on our thought of, okay, if I give love, I'm going to get it back. If I give it to my kids, they're going to love me back. If I have to give it to my kids because I'm their father. I have to give it to my spouse because I took a vow. It's, it's based on a contract. It's based on a commitment very often. It's based on a thought of what I'm going to get back. Ratanjit, you're talking about the purest kind of love, outgiving only, not a thought about why we're doing it or what we're going to get out of it, right?
Yeah. Once you practice loving, you become love. Love exudes out of you. It's like a fragrance I mentioned. And so whoever comes near you experiences that fragrance of love. And because you are you are cultivating that fragrance, you get immersed in that fragrance. You get immersed in that love. So you do not you do not need somebody else to love you, because the love within you is enough to fulfill you, and any activity which you perform is automatically full of love. Right?
No, because it is often so conditional, now that I admit it, we do spend time thinking about, okay, what do they think of what I did? Was it enough? Should I have done more? How come they didn't respond more positively? How come I didn't get a response at all from what I just did that I thought was going to get a response? So often our brain that engages in the effort, I guess when that happens, that is a telltale sign that it wasn't pure love, right? It was conditional, because we're over analyzing that whole situation. If it is just, if we're, as you mentioned earlier with the beauty of the flower, it just is beauty. It just is fragrance. It doesn't have to try. It doesn't have to measure and evaluate and justify. It just is beauty. It just is fragrance. When we're doing it in that purest sense, we don't have to waste time worrying about, was it enough, or did it work, or should I have done more, or why didn't I get a response, right? That's all irrelevant when you just become love.
Yeah, it's again, right now we are thinking, trying to understand this, but we are all parked in the ego mode. And until you get out of this, this cannot be fully comprehended. And to fully comprehend, we have to understand and live. You do not live your knowledge. You only live your habits. Until you cultivate the habit of living in the oneness, in the paradigm of seeing and feeling and experiencing the universal power, you cannot experience that true love. It remains a dialogue. It remains a knowledge. Right?
All right. So this is perfect, because I wanted to end up with the how to. So thank you for laying out the path to allow us to do that. even though we've been talking about this, and to me, it's been a revelation of sorts, that unconditional love is where it's all coming from, because we look, and as one of our wonderful guests elaborated on during the break, if you suddenly are in that paradigm, if you're operating so that all your coworkers, all of the people in your community, all the, way beyond the kids in your home, but everybody that you're engaged with, if you look at them truly as your brother and sister because they're part of the same one, then the chemistry to be able to empower each other and in servitude with each other just becomes, hard to, it has no limits. It's limitless in terms of what the capabilities are having. So if we realize that that's where it can go with that in um amazing gift of love there. But what starts that? What allows us to go from knowing it to living it is the habit that you talked about, and that habit has to be based on oneness, right? If we
Absolutely.
don't get that truth, then we're just talking words.
Yeah, basically, what happens is when you attend a radio show like this, or attend a lecture, or read a book on oneness, or see a movie on oneness, or all that, you say, wow, it's wonderful. And again, you immediately call a friend, oh, you have to watch this movie, you have to read this book, you have to attend this lecture. But this remains as a knowledge. You will get together with your friends and talk about this, but you will never practice it. You only live your habits. You only accumulate your knowledge. Knowledge is something you talk about it, you write about it, you brag about it, but you never live it. You live your habits. So until this knowledge of oneness is converted into your living and thinking habits, it's not going to benefit you. It's not going to become you. So again, as I mentioned, uh, the exercise, which is very simple, when you do that every day, your brain has a portion, as a part, which anything you do repeatedly converts into habit. And habit is you do things without thinking. There are very intelligent people have nasty habits. You wonder, why can't that person think before he shows that habit? So again, to have that habit of living in oneness, I recommended that exercise in the morning. You do that every single day at the same time. So, and when you do that on a regular basis, it automatically becomes a habit. So when you get up in the morning after having your shower and getting ready, find yourself as a secluded place in your house and have a mirror which gives a reflection of your full body. So close your eyes and look into the mirror, and what you see is this human body. And then you think of amazing things this human body is capable of doing. It generates its own blood, it has muscles, it memorizes things, and it's amazing. And then you realize that this is a gift given to you to conduct your journey on this earth. And then you close your eyes and open your eyes and you see the power which enlivens, brings life in this human body. And that power you bow to. And that power, once you do this exercise on a regular basis, sooner or later you are going to fall in love with that power. Every time you do this exercise, you enhance the intensity of that exercise. And with this intensity, your brain power is going to conceive the amazingness of this human body and the amazing power of this universal power. And when you come out of this exercise, when you look in somebody else's eyes, until you see the same divine power in them, your exercise is not done correctly. And once you begin to see that power in everyone around you, you begin to have the urge to love that power, begin to serve that power through adding the highest value which you can, right?
Ratanjit, I have heard you give that example, give that direction in terms of creating that habit. I mean, I don't know how many times I've heard you say that, but I'm never going to suggest that you stop, because even as me, one of your most loyal students of this whole, and I don't want to call it a philosophy because that's not fair. It's not enough to call it
Truth,
that. It's
truth.
the truth. Okay. It's the truth that you're sharing. As much as I am a student of it, and as many times as I've done that exercise, I've done exactly what you said, but I have not done it in a consecutive way over a defined period of time that has allowed that to be a habit for me. And it's embarrassing to admit that, but it's the truth. So I'm going to urge you to continue to say that until people that are dense like me get it, that say, okay, this is the way to build that habit, because the incentive, the motivation for this is so empowering. If we want to truly be the person we were meant to be, if we were meant to fulfill our purpose in not only now adding the highest value, but in having unconditional love to everybody, not limiting. I mean, if we could feel love the way we do feel it for our loved ones, okay, um, the way we feel about our kids, the way we feel about that special individual in our life, that significant other, terminology today, the way we feel about our mom, the way we feel about those people closest. If we could actually imagine having that feeling of love for everybody, for strangers that pass by, that suddenly we have that amazing empowerment of fulfillment of love. I mean, that is a tremendous motivator. So I go ahead. I'm sorry. That wasn't you. That was somebody else. I didn't know we had another voice there.
Basically,
Go
the
ahead.
love you feel for your loved one and all that, the real love, once you experience this, is going to be way much more than what you ever felt for your loved one. You haven't felt the love. You don't know the love until you have the feeling for the universal force within you and around you. That love is a totally different kind of love. So love which you feel for your loved one is infatuation and mine and ego-based and fear-based and greed-based, right?
All right. Well, and that's pretty amazing already. So if this is a number of steps above that in terms of how it makes us feel, then obviously we all want to get there. Ratanjit, thank you so much for sharing this with us. Thank you for being a part of our of our program today, a part of our audience. We wish you love, and we thank you so much for being with us. Remember, we're all playing the same game. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right.
We
Wonderful
hope-
show today. I want to thank everybody for being a part of it. I need to leave earlier. I need to leave now at Ratanjit. I'm going to make you the host so that you can continue this conversation. But I have a commitment that I need to go to. So you can stay all together, and it is being recorded, and I'm going to listen to every word a little bit later on when I have the opportunity. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful, blessed day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you. Thank
All
you.
right. So we are open. Open your mics, and Sana, you have something.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Sana, go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry that this was not related to today's topic. I really enjoyed each and every word spoken by you. It's the ultimate truth. And I'm sure we will try to improve our habits from here. Having said that, I had a suggestion. Coming week, if you haven't finalized the topic, then if you could throw some insight on the topic of gender equality, because 20 of us, like 20 women like me, are going to represent our foundation in the United Nations from 11th of March to 22nd. And the topic of discussion is gender equality through education and various other means. But I really wanted to know your view and suggestions of what are the ways to ensure gender equality, and that will really help us. Thank you.
Gender equality.
Yeah, gender equality.
Okay.
Your view on that.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Lisa, you have joined first time.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I loved this conversation. I've heard you speak about adding the highest value, and I think this was an aha class for me, because when we talk about unconditional love, I really feel that rooted in a feeling that leads to natural action. Where when I think about adding the highest value, it feels more an abstract action, and I struggle like what's just adding value versus the highest value. So I just wanted to thank you for this because it just really connects. My background is Christianity, and we talk about one of the key Bible verses is like God is love and God is the source of all love. And so this conversation about unconditional love and coming from that paradigm was a big kind of like a shift for me. And so I just wanted to thank you for this.
Thank you. Thank you for joining.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
May I interject real quick? I think
Please,
that's a good segue. So I don't know your name, the last person who spoke. Sorry.
Lisa.
Oh, Liz. Yeah.
Liz. Hi, Liz. So
Hi.
hi, I'm Rakesh. So actually, I was going to make this comment. The reason it's very difficult for people to do, because this cannot be achieved by mere knowledge. That is the reason it's difficult. Like like it was said earlier, that just reading a book or listening to a video doesn't get it done. The reason is that there is a strong element of spirituality in all of this. Without that, talking about this is not going to make any difference. So in Christianity, in Hinduism, in Vedas, this concept of oneness is written in extensively in Vedas. It's called non-dualism. There have been philosophers who have talked about this for millennia, not centuries, millennia, in ancient Indian, knowledge system. And then again, like you said, in Christianity, they all speak the same language. They say, the God loves all of us. The God is in all of us, right? So that is the whole idea. And Tony Nader, I don't know if you guys have heard about him. He speaks about oneness and highest value in pretty much all of his videos, YouTube videos. Look him up. So this is really a spiritual experience. It cannot be achieved by reading and listening, and one of the methods that I know, and I'm not an expert, I'm educating myself for the last 15 years on this topic, and I do a lot of reading and research, and I have some of my own constructs that I hope to bring right on this someday. But like meditation. Meditation actually, it may be one of the methods how to realize this oneness. Especially if you have ever taken a class on transcendental meditation, that talks about this big ocean where it's the entire, everything is a big ocean, the ocean of consciousness. And on the surface, there are a lot of ripples, waves, big waves. At the bottom of the ocean, there's total calmness. And that is the analogy that gets used with transcendental meditation. You're trying to achieve that calmness at the bottom of this vast ocean and get away from all these ripples and noise and waves and all of that on the surface. So I'm going to stop that. I know I talked quite a bit. So just wanted to see if, what are your thoughts on that?
This exercise which I mentioned in the mirror, until it is transformed into a meditation, it doesn't work. So meditation itself, it is basically focusing yourself on something, and so this is really one form of meditation.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. Yep.
Anyone else?
Hi, Ratanjit. I just wanted to ask you, altruistic person or altruism, how is that different, or what part of this adding value is it a part of adding value? I think the way you have described unconditional acts of love, where we help others without any condition, even strangers all the time. And that's basically the definition of altruism. How much, what part of your spectrum of helping others or being part of adding value is where you put the altruistic person?
Yeah, each word has a different meaning for each person based on their experience of a life. So again, unless you get there, it is very difficult to experience that and describe that. And so basically you do that without any purpose or any gain or anything. The world calls it selflessness, and ultimately these are all labels of hiding your obvious egoic mode and classifying it into categories which fools you. Ultimately, unconditional adding value, when you start doing that, you don't do it knowingly that you are doing it unconditional. It happens automatically. The moment you do it unconditionally, you are doing it conditionally.
So how about adding value to your own self? I mean, that's serving the same power too, ultimately. So it's not only when you do some things to...
Yeah. Basically,
that would be considered okay too, that in your
Yeah, yeah.
definition, serving the higher power so that we can serve others with the same knowledge and understanding?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So to serve yourself, you have to get rid of all the habits which are compromising your health and your thinking and your being.
Yeah, I always felt that. I just wanted to confirm from you.
Yeah, absolutely. You cannot serve others until you serve yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you for, confirming my bias.
Pierre, your wisdom.
I don't know, Mr. Sandhi. I tell you, this is probably a very difficult endeavor, and a very easy one at the same time. I think our human nature, we have been conditioned to look for something in return in everything that we do. So if you're going to get on this journey and you want to see it through, I think it's very important to decouple that, right? So the first thing that you have to do on the journey is decouple your actions from that expectation, because that would be the biggest hurdle you have to overcome. And as you're on this journey, and we talked about this earlier, it's in math terms, you'll approach perfection, you will never get there. And what that does, it couples back into the previous conversation about making yourself better, so you can continue to add value and you continue to do it. But before you even get there, I think if you can't get out of the paradigm that I'm doing something and I expect something in return, it really will not work. I mean, you will become a very miserable person. I've seen people that have collected money and positions and so forth, and they're miserable. And you would think in our definition today that they should be the happiest people on earth, right? They have money, they give money to charity, they do all this stuff, but they're doing it for the wrong reason, right? They're doing it so they can get their name in the paper. They're doing it so someone can say something about them. So to me, that is the biggest and most difficult exercise, is to decouple ourselves from that.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It's a very good point.
And in order to do that, you have to practice, meaning you have to do this every day. And I've been on this journey, Mr. Sandhi, since 1993, since you and I met the first time. And I've been working through this. And I tell you, I've went through a lot of tribulations, because everything that I've learned up until this point revolved about me being an engineer, and I have to do this and this, and I have to work myself out of that. Now, trust me, with all the things around you, there is so much pressure for you to do exactly the opposite. So I was very fortunate in those, what I would consider my younger years, where I was getting to form my thoughts, that I was able to work with you and learn and get some insight. And that allowed me over my career and my life since then, try to get on this path. I'm not perfect, but I have made a lot of good progress, and I've had good impact on people as I worked through this journey. And I tell you, there's nothing more satisfying than when you work and you're doing things and you're not thinking about it, and people around you radiate of love. They do things without being asked. People will help you without even you asking. So to me, is when you do that, you create this energy around you that you get help from everyone, from the divine within everyone, without you asking. And
Yep.
you help and add value without even thinking about it. And then when you look back and you do introspecting, you start, oh, so Mr. Sandhi was in my life for a reason. because I wouldn't have had this kind of a thought process if you and I have not met 30 years ago.
Somebody else would have met the same thing. Anybody else wants to say something? Sahil, we haven't heard from you.
Right. I'm just enjoying the amazing conversations you're having with the fellow guests. And firstly, thank you so much for the wisdom that you've shared in today's session. And I just have a question. Maybe it's a follow-up question from the two episodes that we've had on this topic. My question is, like you mentioned last time, you feel that you're on a journey to add the highest value, and you aren't there yet, which is quite humble of you to say that. But would it be possible for you to share an experience, maybe a professional experience, where you felt like you added enough value to a situation?
You know, Pierre, you remember I don't know whether you were there at that time or no. Ohio, when we introduced our FlexoGrid to Ohio, they gave us a bridge. This was a bridge overlay, which basically waterproofs it. And the wisdom was that when you have all the bridges have enough salt in them, and you only need 500 parts per million to activate an corrosion cell, and which will eat the rebars, which are essential for the strength of the concrete. But if the water is absent, the chloride ions do not get activated. So that was the idea of our waterproofing. When we approached the state and they liked the idea, they gave us a bridge as an experimental bridge. And the bridge was put out for bid, and a contractor who got the bid eventually bought the material from us and installed it. But when I saw the final installation, it made me sick. It was done very badly. So we had in our company a boss, we call it boss, basically, which was our operating principles. So when we had a problem, we would discuss it openly, and then the final decision was validated by our operating principles. So when we looked at our operating principles, although our group said that we have done everything right and the contractor did not install it, next time we would tighten the specification. But when we called our boss, our operating principle, it in the value column, it says, I will add the highest value unconditionally. So I asked whether we added the highest value. In oneness paradigm, you don't see as yourself separate than the contractor and yourself separate than the DOT. So we are all one. So we collectively, did we add the highest value? Obviously, the answer was somehow we did not. So the consequence of that was that we wanted to do that bridge over again. So it would cost us over $200,000 to take out and redo the bridge. But if we didn't do that, we are not following our own value system. So we went to the state and asked them permission to do the bridge. And the state said, don't worry about it. We'll give you another bridge. So it is done. So I said, no, sir, we allow us to to basically follow our principles. So they said, you are crazy. You are throwing good money after bad money. But anyways, they said, you have our permission if you want to throw your good money. So now, was redoing the bridge was adding the highest value? We asked this question. So then what we did was we took the core samples of concrete on the deck, half-inch deep, quarter-inch deep, three-quarter-inch deep, 1-inch deep, and create the profile of chloride ion present at that depth. And after we did the bridge, and so that after 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, we can compare by measuring the chloride ion concentration and whether our system was working or no. So when we prepared this report and submitted to the chief engineer, he was so impressed by this report, and he asked our permission to present it in the national conference of all the bridge engineer of all the states. And overnight, our system became a national success, which you could have never bought it for any dollar or any money. So when you focus on basically adding the highest value, eventually the consequences will surprise you. Sahil, did it make any sense?
It made total sense. Thank you so much for sharing that experience. It was quite inspiring, and this is honestly where I draw my inspiration from these kind of stories that you've experienced in your life. So thank you for that.
So if you don't have any other questions, I think we can conclude that. And
Can I have a quick comment? It was a great show.
Sure.
Just wanted to let you know, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
Bye-bye.
wonderful. Ratanjit ji. Thank you.